Good evening and welcome once again to Fired Up. This is your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live from the gun store here in Las Vegas on KSHP 1400 AM radio. We're simulcast on YouTube under Fired Up with Bob Irwin. If you go to YouTube, you will find that there. The shows stay up on YouTube, so if you're missing part, you can go back and check it on YouTube. They're usually start a few minutes after the radio broadcast, and they're up forever. Tonight, my guest is murder defense specialist attorney Clark Patrick. Clark,
hey,
welcome back.
Thanks. Again. It's always good to be here.
And a little bit of your background for listeners would
sure.
be good.
As everybody knows, I grew up in Montana. Been around firearms my whole life, hunting a lot, target shooting. Lately, I've been building my own ARs. In the late 70s, early 80s, I did a stint with the Army as a tank commander. And for the last almost 11 years now, I've been practicing law here in Las Vegas, solely murder defense.
Hopefully you will never meet Mr. Patrick in his professional position. We do have some quick notes. If you have a question or comment about anything on the show, you can send a text to bob@firedupmail.com or an email to bob@firedupmail.com. We answer all of them that come in. If we miss something or there's something that becomes important that a lot of people write about, we will address it on the next show. And this is information about guns, related politics, especially today, and issues of self-defense in shooting cases. There are several hundred shooting cases every week in the United States, as we know, usually not covered by the mainstream media much, because if only the bad guy gets shot, it makes having guns look like a good thing, and the major media doesn't seem to be really fond of that. So I always pick out a few cases to talk about that are examples of shootings that happen. First, however, I want to address a subject with Clark that is a big deal in the press today. There's a story on Channel 8 interviewing me about it that's probably coming on Channel 8 about now. We had in the House of Representatives today, you may have noticed, a argument over whether a vote should be taken on a proposal to remove people who are on the no-fly list or the terrorist watch list from the ability to purchase firearms. The civil rights activists around the gun world took issue with that. Speaker Ryan took issue with that without intervention of a judge saying this person should not have a firearm, ending up on the no-fly list. I understand there's something in the area of 1.8 million people, if the numbers they're releasing right, are on the no-fly list. And they're on it for a variety of reasons, most of which are unrelated to terrorism. Anyway, Clark, you looked into this. The question is, does this Supreme Court rule now? This is rejected by the House, so, as they didn't vote on it. So that means what? As far as, I'm mixing up the Supreme Court, I'm sorry, and what happened today in the legislature. But my reaction to it when I looked at it was, it looked like a schoolyard fight. They're all sitting down and waving their arms, and instead of doing the business that Congress does, and they did this for 26 hours.
For publicity and whatever, but no, you know, and the no-fly list or the terrorist watch list, how you get on it, there's no due process involved with either of those lists, which means that some bureaucrat somewhere picks your name out and says, well, maybe we should put them on this list. could be, like you said, a variety of reasons.
This guy's the cousin of a guy we think might be,
yeah. And there's no due process. You can't go before a judge and say, why am I on this list, or I shouldn't be on this list. And so without a mechanism such as that in place, then just saying a blanket statement and saying because you're on these lists you cannot own a firearm. I'm sure there's of the 1.8 million, there's probably half of those that could legally own firearms because they have no criminal history and no problems and would easily pass a background check, and probably do, just because there's no correlation at this time between those two lists. And without a judge or somebody saying it should never happen.
Nobody in this industry, no gun retailers or gun manufacturers want to allow terrorists to have firearms. That's why there's the background check system to prevent that. But this circumvents the background check system.
Sure.
It simply says we're going to put them on the list, meaning they've already failed the background check. And as I tried to explain in the news media in interviews, there are mechanisms in place in our industry to prevent those people from happening. When we run a background check, on rare occasions, we will run a background check on someone, and instead of the call coming back from the state criminal history repository, instead we get a call from a government agency that says, we'd like you to keep us in the loop, and and we're looking at this guy because of where they have probable cause to believe. Now, they don't prevent the guy from buying a gun because he still has a constitutional right, and they don't have a court order saying that, but they have occasionally come down and talked to somebody and discovered that's a guy with the same name and same date of birth, but it ain't their guy. Or, any number of things, and sometimes that results in actual investigations. But there is a mechanism. If a name is flagged, they notify the people involved, the government agency, and they make a decision to just note, well, okay, the guy bought a gun. But it's not illegal for him to buy a gun. And a judge hasn't said that. We can't suspend constitutional rights without judicial intervention. And I know that the left argued, well, this would only be for 21 days, and then the guy would get one of the bills they had, the guy would get his rights back and so forth. And that failed Congress too. But this is a much different issue. This is a guy who has not, by definition, he's not done something that prohibits him from buying a gun. It's not a background check fail. It's a precursor to that.
Right.
And, we've had rulings that say you can't vote if you can't read, and those have all been thrown out. You can vote if you can't read. And they didn't do anything wrong. They just are uneducated. But this thing is just wrong. We are not trying to give guns to terrorists. We are trying to protect people from the government, which wants to take away a constitutional right with no judicial intervention. All we're asking is that a judge say
yes or no.
And then they can turn the guy down all they want. A preemptive strike like this, when he may not have done anything, is I know it'll help the FBI find terrorists, but it stops everybody else. We are a nation of laws, and you have to violate one of them before we don't let you buy a gun. Up until this. And
when you violate the law, that comes with due process. And you have to go before a judge and get your day in court and all your rights protected, instead of just randomly saying no.
I mean, these same guys that are suspending rights for people because they're on a terrorist list of somebody made up are the same guys who say you have to vote. We're not going to export illegal aliens because they have due process rights.
Yeah.
How can they have due process rights and gun owners can't? It makes absolutely no sense to me. And hopefully They have said now that the Democrats there that did this sit-in and sing-in and whatever said that they will come back and start it again when they reconvene on July 5th after the holiday. So we may have Congress locked up again. It's childish. At best, it's childish. At worst, it's interfering with the normal function of the government. If they don't have the votes to get this through, that's why we have elections. They can vote all those people out of office, and everybody who thinks anybody who's on the shouldn't have a gun, then they can vote people into office that'll vote on that and approve it. The vote failed, so they had to sit in, and that's just
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It is not something that the government of the United States, particularly the House of Representatives, should be involved in. That being said, a couple of stories here involving self-defense that I wanted to bring up. This is from KUSA News 9 TV and the Reporter Herald on the 4th a few days ago. In Larimer County, Colorado, the county sheriff's office arrested a 22-year-old man in connection with a reported stabbing on Friday night in Bellevue. Just before 9 p.m., deputies responded to a report of a stabbing near Wrist Canyon Road and Larimer County Road 23 East. I don't know why I put those in there, but they do. It was reported the female was stabbed in the neck and hands. The male suspect still in the area. And a witness to the incident held the suspect at gunpoint while he was on the phone with emergency dispatch operators. When deputies arrived, the suspect failed to follow commands, became combative. A physical struggle ensued. The suspect was subdued, apparently with a taser.
So he was obeying the guy, the citizen, with a gun on the phone. But when the police showed up, he was combative with them because they're much less better armed.
Maybe they didn't point their guns. I don't know. Anyway, he got combative with the cops and got tased. An investigation revealed the victim and the suspect were traveling in a vehicle. The woman who was stabbed were traveling in a vehicle with this guy. They got in an argument. The victim, who was driving, pulled over and got out. She was calling 911 when the suspect attacked her with a knife. She was then transported to a local hospital with serious bodily injuries. The injuries were not life-threatening, however. The suspect was also transported by ambulance to a local hospital for minor injuries and booked into the county jail on felony first-degree assault and resisting arrest. The bystander who saw the fight on the side of the road jumped out, pointed a gun at the guy. The guy backed off. He was able to stop the threat. Very likely saved the woman's life. She was being stabbed.
Right? Very likely.
He's a hero.
Absolutely.
You know, we have people tell us at the counter all the time, well, I have a permit, but I don't carry my gun all the time because I don't think I'll need it.
Yeah. Well, that's
maybe somebody else will need it.
Somebody else will need it.
You know,
this also kind of brings into focus something we've talked about several times on the show about defense of others. The armed citizen does not appear that he knew any of these people, and sometimes if you get into a fight and you don't know what's going on, could be you point the gun at the wrong party.
Correct.
But in this case, when you have a woman that's obviously being stabbed by the man, you know who the bad party is, and it's safer to go in and break that up.
Yeah, I think this was pretty safe observation too. I mean, what are the odds that this is a police officer in plain clothes defending himself against a combative woman by stabbing her?
Right.
That's probably happened somewhere, but pretty unusual. I think the guy's got a great argument to make. You know, it certainly appeared.
Absolutely.
You know, and the woman is going, help, help, instead of going, I'm a cop, you know,
right.
I want to be stabbed, or whatever the case may be.
No, I think that's absolutely right. This was
good.
A great job by the citizen, and
carry your gun.
Could know.
You never know when you might or somebody else might need it. We offer here at the gun store free concealed carry permit classes every Monday, every Wednesday, every Saturday. You can find the classes on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. Please sign up For the class, learn the rules of the road for carrying your guns so you don't get involved in a civil lawsuit or something later on. Again, comments to Bob at Fired Up Mail, and please friend us on Facebook if you get a chance. This is from the Boston Herald Courier, Gainesville, Florida. This is a great story. Police say a homeless woman was defending herself when she fatally shot a man at a homeless camp in Gainesville. Police report a woman called 911 Thursday evening, and the dispatcher heard her yelling, "Get off me," before the line disconnected. When the dispatcher called back, police say the woman answered and said she'd shot someone. Police did not identify the 54-year-old woman because she is a domestic violence victim. Responding officers say they found her covered in blood with a gun in her purse. At the campsite, police say they discovered a 41-year-old male with a fatal gunshot wound to his chest. Police say the woman's injuries were defensive, and based on her statement and the interviews with witnesses there, believe she acted clearly in self-defense. This woman is homeless. I love the story because, surprise, a homeless victim has a gun, which was okay for her to have. The 911 tape, again, because she's on the phone with 911, yelling at the guy. It has her warning him off, literally warning him off, and provides a sequence of events. We've talked about leaving your phone on when the thing happens so the dispatch can hear what's going on. Hopefully this woman will be allowed to get the help she needs to get her life back on track. I just read this and I just couldn't imagine what was going through this jerk's mind,
Right.
just as the gun went off.
Never thought that she'd be
God, this woman has
right?
a gun.
Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah, we do a lady self-defense class here at the gun store. Actually, there's one on tonight on the other side of this wall behind me. We do it twice a month. It's normally taught by noted firearms instructor Maggie Mordaunt. The next class is 2 weeks from today. It's every 2 weeks. I didn't write the time down. I wrote tonight's, and it's on tonight. So I can't tell you there's a class tonight because it's already halfway through. They're over in the range learning to shoot their guns. So you can find them on our website and sign up. Maggie is a great instructor. It's a ladies class. We don't allow males into it, so you can ask the questions and talk about, women can talk about the issues that they have without somebody giggling behind them. WHIO, it's News Station Ohio, WHIO.
Yeah.
News Center 7 report, Dayton, Ohio. Police released a 911 call from a shooting of a suspected intruder in Oak Ridge Drive in Dayton. A man is breaking into my house. The caller told emergency dispatchers. They broke out my window and lit up my screen. I don't know what that means, but that's a code. They lit up my screen. I fired a shot and don't know whether I hit one or not. The caller eventually looked outside to find one suspect was lying on the porch. She told dispatchers the other individuals believed involved ran away. The suspect was shot as he began to make entry into the home. Police are looking for 2 additional suspects believed to be juveniles.
So they didn't stop and help their wounded friend?
Apparently, when their buddy got shot, they ran. I'm always disappointed that they leave their friends.
Yes, they always do.
Once in a while, they drive him to a veterinarian and throw him out of the car or something. There is no honor among thieves, folks. They always leave their wounded friend. Anyway, the wounded guy is in Miami Valley Hospital as police investigate. A Dayton police lieutenant said an elderly resident did not fire a shot at the person she believed was breaking into her home. It appears the individual did, in fact, begin to make entry into the home before the resident discharged her weapon. The woman lives there with another elderly person but was alone when the shooting occurred. The police lieutenant from Dayton, Ohio Police said, people have a right to protect their homes if they feel their life is in danger. There are specific circumstances that may occur, and it'll be up to detectives to determine whether or not those particular parameters have been met. Clearly, he feels they have. The elderly woman was was alone at the time, fortunately had a firearm in order to defend herself. All three suspects, the police believe, were juveniles and all live in the neighborhood. Consider the result if she had not had a firearm. Would that be you when three guys come in and start into your house? It's hard to imagine the outcome if this woman was not on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Could have turned out very poorly.
You'd have a firearm in your home. As I just said, the classes are free. We have pistols here that start at like less than $200. Wherever you buy it, I don't care. For the purpose of this project, it's not like you to buy it here, yes, but you know, if have a gun, it doesn't require that you use it. You may decide you want to have one in the middle of this and wish you had bought one. There's a lecture I give to people all the time to say, yeah, I'm going to get one. I got to make one more payment on my car, and I'm going to come back and get a gun in 2 weeks. And I go, hope that 2 weeks doesn't prove eventful before you put the gun on your credit card and you can pay them a month later. Get a firearm, take a class, learn how to use it. Class is free. Don't be a dummy. If you're planning a corporate event, we have machine gun shooting here. You can contact Melissa at thegunstorelasvegas.com or Deanna at thegunstorelasvegas.com to sign up your group, and we will take care of you, and you will have a wonderful time. Washington Post, Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported on the 9th in Stockbridge, Georgia. Henry County Police responded to 911 while reporting gunshots and a woman crying for help. An argument prompted a 911 call at midnight took place at the neighbor's house. The operator was never given the exact address even after connecting the caller to the caller a second time. The nearby resident had gone outside to investigate a possible intruder. He went to see what the dogs were barking about, said a woman who lived next door. He picked up his gun and went out to his gate. Officers are responding. They don't have the address correctly of where the home was. So this guy, he's 63 years old. He emerged from his garage. This is 4 in the afternoon. I'm sorry, this took place at midnight. The officers are there as he emerges from the house. The officer seeing the gun indicated, he says, for the guy to drop the gun. The guy instead raised the gun. The officer shot. The officer has been placed on administrative leave, and there's a review going on of the 911 call that indicates the officers were at the wrong house, a couple of houses over. They've turned the investigation over to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, obviously, because the agency can't investigate itself. Here, in this case, this is a tragedy all the way around. We have lots of confusion. It resulted in the death of an innocent resident. There was apparently a loud argument at a nearby home and possibly a gunshot. We're not at this point sure there was a gunshot, but someone reported hearing a gunshot. There's a huge series of errors. The dispatch never did get the correct address. So the officers ended up at the wrong house, either through misinformation or whatever. The guy came out with his gun in hand. The police officers claiming they ordered him to drop the gun. Witnesses don't actually remember hearing that. If your dogs are barking and the police are there, stay in your house. The police are responding to a call that says, rightly or wrongly, there was a loud argument and a gunshot. They're looking for an armed suspect, somebody wounded or killed, and so forth and so on. They come, of course, they're going to come into that hot, paying attention, hyped up. They see a guy with a gun, yell, drop the gun, what? And you don't confront the police. If you see the police cars out there, go back in your house, lock the door, and wait. Eventually, they'll come to your door and go, hi, did you see anything? What's going on? Yep. Don't come out with your gun. We can't really tell from this who was wrong. That's why at the outset I said this is apparently a series of errors. The officer has been suspended pending the investigation. And we got that dead guy that came out with his gun and came out of his garage because the dogs were working.
Yep.
This is the kind of stuff that makes the left-wing press why they should take guns away from elderly people or cops, because cops are shooting people. They shouldn't carry guns, whatever side they pick on the argument. Unless you need to go out of your house with the gun because somebody out there is being murdered, or why would you go out?
No reason. Call the police. They've probably already been called. Wait for them.
Anyway, again, we offer free concealed carry permit classes here. Please come down and attend one Monday, Wednesday, or Saturday. Sign up online, thegunstorelasvegas.com. Ask questions in the class, and we will try and clarify this. I'm not saying that people should not defend themselves, but I really don't want to see my students running out with a gun when they're not running out for any reason except the dog's barking. Know what's going on. Same case, sort of. Orange County Register on 6-7 Anaheim Hills, California. A man shot and killed a person early Monday who he suspected was burglarizing his car. Anaheim officers went to the house at a 100 block of South Eucalyptus Drive just after, I think it was 1 a.m. I left the time out of the thing, I just put a.m. A resident there told police he saw a male inside his vehicle, which was parked in the driveway of his home. So what did he do? He got his shotgun and went out to confront the suspect. We just talked about this in the last case, why I have these both on here. He went out to confront the suspect and fired a 12-gauge round. The 45-year-old suspect fled, was found by officers nearby suffering from a gunshot wound. He was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. Most of the rumors you hear around a campfire that if you shoot somebody with a shotgun, they're going to die. Probably true in most cases. The home where the shooting occurred sits back from the road and has a small keep off sign on the edge of its long driveway. The man who shot the suspect lives there with his wife and 2 children and keeps several horses on their property. A neighbor hopes people won't rush to judgment in the shooting, adding that thieves have stolen items from a yard and vehicles at least 7 times over the last 4 years. And then she said she plans to install security cameras as a deterrent.
After 7 times? Maybe she should have thought of that after 2 or 3 times.
Or after the 7th, before this one happened, and maybe we'd know what happened because there'd be video.
Right.
Or maybe the bad guy sees the cameras and picks a different house. Anyway, Anaheim police homicide details investigating. The identity of the male suspect has not been released pending notification of family. He cleared no identification. Prosecutors are reviewing the shooting, said a spokesman for the Orange County District Attorney's Office. As of this report, there were no charges filed, and I didn't find a follow-up on it. If the reports are correct, notice I didn't tell you in here what kind of gun the bad guy had. There is no mention of him being armed. Apparently, according to the reports, the resident went out to confront the would-be car burglar and shot him. He may have tried to jump the robber. If the dead guy has a family, there's certainly a civil suit coming up for this. This is in California. Everybody sues everybody for everything, every time. Again, if there's something going on, somebody breaking into your car, call the police and watch. Film with your camera
iPhone,
or your
whatever.
iPhone.
Yeah, he's inside the house. The guy's in his car. Maybe it takes a minute for the police to arrive, but there's no need to go out and confront him. Because who knows? He could have a friend. There could be somebody in a getaway car.
There could be 5 of them out there.
Could be armed. Could be all kinds of things.
But unless somebody's in danger that you can clearly see, there's somebody being hurt or killed, stay in your house, call the police, be a good witness. This guy now, I know what he's thinking. You know, somebody's breaking into my car. According to the neighbors, it happens all the time. Da, 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 da. I understand that. And if the police aren't responding fast enough or not catching the burglars, I hate to give you the advice to move. Most people can't afford to do that. And that's kind of letting the criminals take over your life.
Right.
But the cameras would help. Outside lights would help. A car alarm would help. And all of those things cost money, but not a whole lot of money. A neighborhood watch program, something. Just don't wander out when somebody in the middle of the night is burglarizing your car. I want you also to check out ammoon.com. There's a note there with their website. I write for them now. We do these stories, and I have some comments on them. And you can write in and comment on the comments if you want. Some of them are really interesting. I know when I put this story on, someone will write in and say, the guy had a right to kill a burglar who's trying to steal his stuff. This is
Only in
America,
Texas.
God damn it, you know. And, you know, that's all well and true, and I don't like bad guys. What I'm trying to do is keep you from getting in trouble or risking your life when it's whatever's in your car.
Right. Is it not
You
worth
could
it?
replace that. You know, you have lawsuits and dead guys, and you know, it isn't worth it. It seems like it at the time. It's not. Don't engage.
Whatever was
unless-
worth in that car is certainly not as expensive as the lawsuit he's facing.
Yeah, ammoland.com. Look it up when you get a chance. We got the sign there. You've seen it. There's our email address if you want to send in a question or comment about that. We got one more here that's how to get yourself arrested without hardly trying. WNCN TV 17, it's a CBS affiliate in North Carolina, reported this one back on the 3rd. The manager of a Raleigh nightclub was arrested early Monday morning after firing his gun into the air at 12:40 a.m., just after midnight. So, this is a place called the Still Life nightclub. It's on 401 Northwest Street. Anyway, a fight broke out in the parking lot of this nightclub. Fights break out in parking lots of nightclubs after midnight, I guess, fairly commonly. Anyway, in an attempt to break up the fight, the manager went out and made the decision after yelling, you know, stop fighting, and everybody ignored him. To get their attention, he fired his gun in the air a couple times.
Been watching too much TV. That always works on TV.
Yeah, everybody looks around and goes, okay, I'll stop. But somebody in the fight could think somebody's shooting at them. I mean, and the round could come down somewhere.
Sure.
And hit, I mean,
It's got to come down somewhere. Yes.
If they're only fist fighting, probably introducing deadly force even in the air is not smart to begin with, but nowhere in this does it say the manager was smart. Anyway, discharged his fire in the air. The Raleigh Police Department PIO, Public Information Officer, told CBS North Carolina the shots were fired as the officers arrived at the scene.
Oh, which makes it even worse. Looking back to a couple stories previously.
Now the cops arrive and there's a guy firing a gun. Now they're not going to look at midnight and see he's pointing it in the air, whatever. So they're all hyper. Now they got a big fight and they hear gunshots.
Right.
What could possibly go wrong here? Anyway, they get through everything, get everybody sorted out. No one was struck by the gunfire. No indication anyone else discharged a firearm. And the 37-year-old manager was arrested and the weapon recovered at the scene. The manager is charged with discharging a firearm in the city limits and resisting a public officer. That second one is due to the fact that he purposely hindered the investigation when they're going around going, what happened? Who saw who with a gun? He said he didn't have a gun. He didn't know anything about a gun. He didn't hear any gunshots.
Yeah, that's not good.
Okay, well, you got a whole front yard there parking lot full of drunks and whatever. And of course, somebody told the police, actually, no, he had the gun and he shot it in the air and the So they charged him with unlawful, they're investigating a crime, maybe an attempt murder, whatever. They don't know why the shots were fired. So they charged him with a crime hindering the investigation, which may be a bigger problem than just firing the shots in the air and going, well, I was trying to break up the fight and, I died. Here's my gun and nobody was hit. I can see the cops just going, that was really stupid.
Not good, but we're not going to arrest you.
We looked around. We didn't find any 12-year-olds with bullet holes in them. So you skated. Have a nice evening. Don't ever do that again. That's the normal reaction cops have. When he lied to the officers and they're up there an extra hour and a half trying to figure out who was shooting at who and interviewing all these people, detectives are called. So the guy lied to the cops. So he ends up being arrested basically for impeding an investigation of what they thought was a serious crime. It's what we used to call a contempt of cop arrest, really. In my younger days, years ago with a little department in California, I must confess to contempt of cop charges. Once I actually got a smart aleck youngster driving. He's an adult, but arguing with me about speed and who was doing what and what lane he was in and who was driving the car. And I was watching him, and he made this statement to me: "You can't take me to jail."
Uh-oh.
Never say that to a police officer. Of course I could take him to jail. I took it as a personal contest to prove that I could, and I did. And when you put someone in jail, I'll tell you a police secret, the first thing on the form is you write the guy's name and his date of birth and whatever, and then you write what he's charged with. And if you leave that blank, they can't really hold him because there's no crime adjudicated, no crime being considered, no crime claimed. But he has to go through the process, get fingerprint photograph, and he's down there about 3 hours. And then they go, "Oh, look, everyone didn't charge him with anything. Oh, yeah, do you want to charge this guy with something? Oh, never mind." So then they throw him out the door. And don't tell a police officer he can't take you to jail. Yes, he can. He can be wrong, and they have to let you go. These days, this was many years ago, so I'm not going to get sued by this guy. I'm sure he remembers it. As well as
I'm sure he does.
Because that was the surprise. You are taking me to jail. Yes, moron.
Right.
Supreme Court today. This is other gun news. The Supreme Court Monday heard an appeal from some gun rights activists, the NRA and a few others, challenging the constitutionality of New York and Connecticut laws that ban citizens from owning assault weapons. This case has been in the system for a long time. It just happened to come out in the middle of all this Orlando stuff. The court's action was to basically not hear it. The case came out of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, where New York upheld the state laws in Connecticut and New York, and this was the appeal of that decision by some gun rights groups. Those two states enacted assault weapon bans shortly after the Sandy Hook incident, and that ban of owning those types of guns in those states has existed all this time. They grandfathered some people here and there that own them already and so forth. So some people have them, but you can't buy new ones in those states or acquire them in those states since those bans in Connecticut and New York State. Now, there hasn't been enforcement much because they were still on appeal to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court finally heard it today. The law turned solely. That was 2013, this 2016. And the court said that those states may restrict firearms, and the other side, our side, was claiming it's a states' rights issue, the government should stay out of it and so forth, which is going to bite us back now. Anyway, so those two states have had bans on assault rifles that are mostly unenforced. Now they can be enforced. The federals now will, I'm sure, use that case where in Connecticut and New York, the Second Circuit, that applies to the Second Circuit, I presume.
Yes.
It doesn't directly apply to the other circuits.
Correct.
But it will be argument.
It'll be argument. Yeah, it's not binding precedent they have to follow, but it'll use it as argument saying, well, they did it there, so you should do it here. Kind of like, he jumped off that cliff, you should too now.
Different states do different things. And I know they've done some studies in New York when their law passed in New York. They waited a bit, and one of the universities, I didn't bring it out, but one of the universities did a study where they tried to determine how many people were disobeying the law. The law was kind of suspended because it was on appeal, but it was still the law. So they could enforce it if they wanted to. And the law is on their books, and it says you can't have an assault weapon. If you have one, you have to sell it out of state or get rid of it or just turn it in the police department or whatever. And they tried to do a survey to see how many people had actually done that. And that's very difficult because they're doing a phone survey and they're calling people and going, do you own an assault rifle? And who answers that question on the phone?
Right.
But anyway, they got a few, and they had psychologists word the questions. And they in New York State, they came up with that they thought they had 27% compliance with the law. The people that admitted to having such a weapon or owning one or having one in storage, 27% said they had complied with the law, they had sold it out of state, sold it at a gun show, didn't have it anymore, or turned it into the police. Well, the number they returned to the police was essentially zero, as I recall. So the other 73% are in violation of law, and now it's upheld. And New York, of course, and Connecticut, you have to register all your guns. So they theoretically have a list. And now that it's not on appeal, those two states certainly can show up at the houses and go, let's have the gun. And if you choose not to give us your gun and you choose to tell us that you gave it away or sold it or you don't have it anymore, if we believe you might, we're going to go to a judge and get a search warrant, which they still have to do. Then that gives you a warning to hide it.
To hide it better.
Next door's neighbor's yard,
Right.
Rebury it in somebody else's yard. The survey is really, really iffy because I don't think anybody that owns an AR-15 that's enough of a gun guy to own an AR-15 is going to answer that on the phone.
No.
Say,
There's no way.
I'm with, Pepperdine University, whoever it was. It was one of the major colleges did this. They're not going to answer truthfully. Would you?
No.
I mean, if you'd answer that on the phone truthfully, you have to be too stupid to own a gun, which might be a part of this law, If you lie about it. Anyway, they have a registry because everybody's required to register their gun. They believe we've got 73% compliance. And now that the court has decided by striking down the appeal, they're in position to enforce that law. You want to do that? We could get a part-time job going to houses in rural New York and going, Give me your AR.
Nope. New.
I,
No.
you're dealing here with citizens who bought the gun illegally when they bought it. Then they changed the law and said, you got to turn them in. And they didn't, because the law was on appeal. So it wasn't being enforced. Now it can be enforced. You're still dealing with all these people who bought a gun legally. That is the gun they had in the Army. I had a report ask me the other day, why do people buy AR-15s? It's the same reason they bought M1s when they came back from World War I or World War II, and M1 carbines when they came back from Korea and so on. They bought the gun they learned to use when they were in the military.
Sure.
They like the gun. They know how to take it apart. They know it works. They've been trained on it. That's the one they buy.
Absolutely.
That's why Willie still sells Jeeps, if they do.
Well,
I guess
Jeep still sells Jeeps.
But they're actually made in.
Somewhere.
Anyway, I mean, it's because it's the gun they're used to. That's the gun they like. They were, they had to drill with it, and they got yelled at with it. They didn't clean it, so on. It's the gun they're used to. So people buy AR-15s, the semi-automatic version of the military rifle. That's why they buy them, not because they want to gun down people in gay bars in Florida. So they didn't do anything wrong, and now over these series of events, the police are going to show up at the door, or the firearms goon squad or whatever. They're doing this in California. They've been doing it for some time. And going door to door to houses they believe there's an illegal gun there now, and attempting to recover them. Not really a good idea. I mean, that's the Supreme Court's decided. Their law is fixed.
Isn't that kind of what
appeal? I don't know. It's beyond appeal. It's there.
Isn't that kind of what Hitler did in the 30s? Went door to door and took all the guns away from the public, the populace. I think the Bolsheviks did that in
most every
1917 too.
totalitarian government has done that, and most of the leaders of totalitarian governments over the years have said, first you got to get all the guns, or it ain't going to work.
Yep.
We put the Second Amendment in because we were being railroaded by a government that paid no attention, forced to pay taxes without representation. I don't all that other stuff, but those of you who took history in high school that they don't teach anymore know what I know. I've read the real books that tell you that. This is a huge problem. Where it's going, we don't know. This is kind of bigger story actually than the story about the
sit-in,
the list in the sit-in
Yeah.
and so on and so on.
it really is.
Imagine this now as a Supreme Court turned down and President Hillary coming in, who has bragged that she's gonna get rid of all these guns that are killing everybody, and none of these guns ever killed anybody. It's always the person pulling the trigger. This is the equivalent of outlawing cars because of drunk drivers.
Mm-hmm.
People do misuse guns, yes, but it's a small percentage. It's not these innocent people who want to have a gun that they like and want to go hunting and target shoot and practice with it and so on and play war games with it even. I mean, who cares? Until they commit a crime, going to the house and taking their gun. We've got decisions in the Heller case and so forth that say you're allowed to have a gun. Now they're saying only one that actually meets the standards of we think that gun is too dangerous. And the funny thing is, people that own the really dangerous guns, machine guns, real machine guns, rarely, never commit crimes with them.
Right?
They don't. There's statistics for that. That we sell machine guns. They're legal here in Nevada. And people buy machine guns, go fingerprints, and go through all this background checks. Really involved. 6, 7, 8 months to get the possession of the gun. And the ATF testified in a court, a hearing in Congress years ago, that they had no record of any machine gun legally owned being used to commit a crime in the hands of the owner. Some of them have been stolen, Yes. And ATF does require, you know, if you have this, there's certain safety things. We'd like you to have a safe. We'd like you to have an alarm, and so on and so on. And they do it to gun shop, where we get safety reviews all the time. They want us to put this, that, or the other thing in for security. There's, let me try. Oh, God, we're down to 4 minutes. I'll skip that for now. We'll do our little closing thing already, and then I'm going to come back to some California laws. You guys are about to get slammed again. Las Vegas Gun Show coming up July 16 and 17 at the Sports Center on East Sunset Road, just east of Las Vegas Boulevard, where they have the golf course there and the car ride around things. We're going to be at that show. I will try to be there from 11 to 12 or 1 on both days, Saturday and Sunday. If I can make it, I may get stuck here in the store Tuesday or Saturday. I will be there Sunday if you want to talk or ask questions about something. Next week, we've got one of my favorite guys, Homicide Detective Phil Ramos, is on the show again. Great pro-gun guy and has a great insight to investigating these shooting cases we're talking about and how the cops look at him. If I had done this story about the contempt of cop arrest, he would have been, yeah, I understand what happened.
Right.
You lie to the cops. Anyway, so we'll be back next week at the same time. Be sure, if you have a question or comment, to bob@firedupmail.com, and like us on Facebook, please, if you would, or like us, or I'm not understanding the difference between liking us and whatever, but they do that. We got 1,500 likes and something. I don't understand the system. I just put it there, but you can send questions in there too if you want. And we're on YouTube all the time. We do have free concealed carry classes. I keep hammering that when I see people do mistakes, that they should know better if they thought about it. Right. We're trying to keep you out of jail and out of lawsuits. Firearms Policy Coalition in California. There's Gunzilla has hit again. 4 bills apparently went through just now today, without going through their committees that do cost analysis. They sent them directly to the governor for signature. One of them bans constantly protected firearms that have magazine locking devices. They don't like detachable magazines in California. They make bullet buttons, so you have to use a bullet nose to get the magazine out. The bill outlaws those. All those guns with bullet buttons become contraband. There's a criminal charge under another one for failing to report a lost or stolen firearm in a timely manner. There is a bill that requires a license to buy ammunition. You buy from the state, and then you have to only buy ammunition for guns that you can show you own. And a really bad one, SB 1446, requires confiscation or destruction of all magazines for anything that hold more than 10 rounds. This is headed to the governor's desk as we speak. All your grandfathered magazines could become ungrandfathered. The group is called firearmspolicy.org, firearmspolicy.org. Look them up on the internet, support them. They are doing what they can to save your stuff. Now, we are about out of time. We're going to be back next week. We'll have a follow-up on this, obviously, and a follow-up on gun bans. Thanks for watching. We appreciate your patience and your time. Keep your gun.